keep going here. At the macro level of higher education and advocacy, what responses to poverty have been, in your view, the most effective?
So maybe I'll start really quickly to say, first of all, I'm just so glad ECS is doing this and honored to be on a panel with these folks talking about something that's such a crucial issue. And in a way, part of, I guess, what I would say to start an answer to that question by is maybe pivoting off of something you just mentioned, like that there's a version of how we respond to crises, to concerns that are really just a function of what we're taught. And so there's a version, I think, of how we've been taught to stigmatize being poor that we have to unlearn. There's a reason why we're in an election cycle now. Of course, we can't escape the reality of that. And there's a reason why politicians, for instance, talk about the middle class as this all-encompassing category and don't really talk about poor people because we stigmatize. So I think one of the things we have to do is unlearn this ideology we've been taught that there's a category of poor people that deserve help and a category that doesn't deserve help, what you used to call the undeserving poor. That already begins to clog up the machinery of trying to create policy that can really address big macro structural problems. It also isn't to say that people don't take responsibility for their everyday actions. We know that they do, but that's not at the expense of thinking in a more systematic way about how we understand the perpetuation of inequality. So one of the things we used to do at SP2 when I was dean over there is try to get students, whether they were on the clinical track or on the macro track, to realize that you have to understand the impact you're having in ways that link clinical interpersonal engagements with these larger questions of policy and structural change. That's, I think, the key. And often people are forced into this, I think, the completely unhelpful challenge of imagining they have to create an either-or scenario, where they're either folks who believe we have to bootstrap folks and give them the tools they need. Tools are important, skill building is important, but not at the expense of really understanding the skills you have won't matter unless there are structural supports in place you can take advantage of. So I think it's trying to make sure the policies we put in place operate on both of those scales at the same time, right? Give folks the skills they need to develop, give them the human capital to develop, but also make sure there's a larger structural context within which they can take advantage with those skills of all society has to offer. And I think that's an important, delicate balance to walk well.